Welcome to UK True Crime Stories, the podcast where we delve into the most compelling and often baffling true crime cases, sourced directly from the discussions and insights of the Reddit community.
Each episode will bring you stories that have captivated online sleuths and sparked intense debate, from the unresolved mysteries that haunt us to the cases where justice has finally been served, or heartbreakingly delayed.
Today, March 19th, 2026, we're launching our very first episode, and we're starting with a case that has left investigators and the public alike scratching their heads right here in the UK. Our first story takes us to the serene, yet isolated, landscape of the Clerwen Reservoir in Wales. It's a case that a Reddit user on our Unresolved Mysteries recently described as really solvable, yet it remains stubbornly open.
And it truly is perplexing, Sophie. The core details read almost like a riddle. In October 2024, the body of a man was discovered in the reservoir. Medical examiners believed he may have been in the water for up to 12 weeks, judging by the state of decomposition.
What struck investigators immediately was the complete lack of identifying features. He had no jewelry, no tattoos, and no distinctive scars. He was a white male, estimated to be between 30 and 60 years old, an unfortunately wide range, certainly, and stood at least 180 centimeters tall, or around 6 feet. His weight was approximated between 90 and 100 kilograms, or 200 to 220 pounds.
And the clothing, or lack thereof, is another crucial detail. He was dressed only in a wetsuit. Police conducted extensive searches around the reservoir's perimeter, but not a single personal belonging was found. No shoes, no clothes, no watch, no wallet, absolutely nothing that could offer a clue to his identity.
The location itself deepens the mystery. The reservoir is situated some 20 kilometers from the nearest town. No car, no bicycle, no mode of transport was ever found. The closest bus stop is a 4-hour walk away, and crucially, no witnesses ever reported seeing the man walking in the area, in a wetsuit or otherwise. Helicopter searches also failed to find any sign of a campsite or a tent, suggesting he wasn't living rough nearby.
So, the fundamental question remains, how did he even arrive at this remote location where he would eventually die?
Investigators have exhausted standard avenues. They've searched missing persons reports, run his fingerprints, and cross-referenced his DNA through both UK systems and Interpol, all without a single match.
Which brings us to a recent development, one that a Reddit post highlighted just today, March 19th, 2026. Police have now released a facial reconstruction, hoping it will generate new leads. He's described as having striking facial features and a noticeable overbite. It's a poignant image, giving a face to an unknown man.
An inquest into his death was held in February 2025, concluding that the death was not currently thought to be suspicious. But Dan, the circumstances surrounding his arrival and the absence of any personal items certainly raise questions, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, Sophie. And that's a sentiment echoed by many on Reddit. One user, who initially posted about the case, put forward a compelling theory. They suggested it seems likely that he arrived at the reservoir in a vehicle, with at least one other person. Then, accidentally it seems, he drowned, and the other person, or people, decided to leave him there and remove all evidence that could have identified him, such as his wallet and the clothing he must have been wearing before changing into the wetsuit.
That's a very plausible scenario, given the remote location and the lack of any personal items. The idea that someone would go to such lengths to remove all traces of identity is chilling.
It is, but another Reddit user challenged that idea, pointing out that he could have arrived up to 4 months prior, perhaps even by bicycle, although no bike was ever found. It just highlights the sheer number of unknowns.
One local Welsh user offered some geographical context, noting that July to August 2024 was a particularly sunny summer, which could be relevant if he had been there for some time. They also detailed the limited access points, mentioning National Cycle Route 81, about an hour's cycle away, or the main car route through Elan Village.
And the wetsuit itself has drawn attention. Another user, clearly knowledgeable, identified it as a swimming wetsuit, specifically a Zone 3 Agile model. They noted it would be very unusual to scuba dive in that sort of wetsuit. Or kayak or winch kite surf. Not to say you couldn't, just it's a fairly expensive open water swimming design suit, so it would be suboptimal for those other activities.
So, the most likely scenario, according to this Reddit user, is that he was a long-distance open water swimmer or triathlete. That certainly paints a picture, but it still doesn't explain how he got there, or why he was left alone without any personal effects.
Precisely, Sophie. The release of the facial reconstruction is a critical step, and hopefully, someone out there will recognize those striking features and that noticeable overbite. This man deserves his name back, and his family deserves answers.
Dan, our next case takes us far from the Welsh valleys, across the Atlantic, to a story of a different kind of mystery, one where justice was profoundly delayed and, for some, devastatingly denied.
That's right, Sophie. Our next case is a stark reminder of the devastating impact of wrongful accusations, and it's a story that recently saw a significant development. On February 19, 2026, a Texas state district judge officially exonerated 4 men previously accused in the infamous 1991 Austin yogurt shop murders.
It's truly heartbreaking to hear of lives lost, and then to learn that innocent individuals were caught up in the aftermath for so long.
Indeed. For years, Michael Scott, Forrest Wellborn, Robert Springsteen, and Maurice Pierce were the main suspects in the brutal murders of Eliza Thomas, 17, Jennifer Harbison, 17, Sarah Harbison, 15, and Amy Ayers, just 13 years old. Their bodies were discovered on December 6, 1991, inside the I Can't Believe It's Yogurt shop after a fire had been set. Investigators determined the 4 had been shot and assaulted prior to the fire, which unfortunately complicated the investigation by contaminating and destroying crucial evidence.
The fire alone would have been a massive obstacle for investigators, let alone the other factors.
Absolutely. Early in the investigation, Maurice Pierce was arrested on an unrelated gun charge, and the weapon he had was the same make and model as the one used in the murders. This immediately made him a suspect. The lead investigator, Detective Hector Polanco, conducted an interrogation with Pierce, which resulted in a confession to the murders.
A confession that must have seemed like a breakthrough at the time.
It would have, Sophie. However, the very next day, a different detective, John Jones, interviewed Pierce separately and quickly realized that his confession simply did not align with the actual details of the crime scene. Furthermore, the ballistics from Pierce's gun were inconclusive and, years later, were definitively proven not to be from the murder weapon. These inconsistencies led to Pierce's release, though he remained a suspect.
So, even at that early stage, there were red flags about the confession.
Precisely. And those red flags extended to Detective Polanco himself. He was later removed from the yogurt shop case after it was proven he had coerced a false written confession from another man, Alex Brewan, in March 1992. This came to light after Brewan failed a polygraph test related to his supposed confession.
That's a deeply troubling pattern of behavior from an officer of the law.
It gets worse. Multiple other coerced confessions in separate cases led to an investigation by the Travis County District Attorney's Office years later. This investigation uncovered what was referred to as the Polanco era, a period when Polanco supervised Austin Police's homicide unit. During this time, he used methods to coerce false confessions that were labeled as unethical and totally out of control. This assessment was confirmed as recently as 2024 by a former investigator from the DA's office.
Totally out of control. That's a damning indictment of his methods and the justice system at the time. My heart goes out to all those whose lives were impacted by such practices.
Indeed. Despite the early issues, cold case detectives later identified Maurice Pierce, along with Robert Springsteen, Michael Scott, and Forrest Wellborn, as suspects. The 4 were then arrested in late 1999 on murder charges, again after investigators coerced false confessions, specifically following interrogations with Robert Springsteen and Michael Scott.
So, years after the initial questionable confession, the same pattern of coercion appears to have been repeated. It's an infuriating cycle.
It is. The Reddit comments on this case truly highlight the public's outrage and concern. One user shared on our Unresolved Mysteries, "I really hope they get some sort of compensation for the hell they endured." Another user directly linked this case to the broader issue of capital punishment, stating, "And this is why we shouldn't have the death penalty. Not just because the state was fairly close to killing an innocent man, but because the threat of execution was clearly used to coerce false confessions."
That's a powerful point. The threat of such a severe penalty could certainly drive someone to confess to a crime they didn't commit, just to escape the immediate danger.
And a top comment provided more detail on Polanco, noting he was at the center of a lawsuit with the city in relation to his past cases. Multiple of his cases included threats such as threatening to use the death penalty. This Reddit user also cited former officers who confirmed Polanco cared more about clearance rates than whether or not the person being questioned truly did it. This link to a local news article reinforces the gravity of the misconduct.
It's a chilling reminder that the pursuit of justice must always be balanced with ethical conduct and a commitment to truth, above all else. These 4 men lost decades of their lives, and the real perpetrator of these horrific murders remains at large.
From a case of delayed justice, Sophie, we now turn to a mystery that has finally found its resolution, albeit one that brings its own layer of tragedy.
This next story comes to us from Hornachos, a small, mountainous, and remote town in Extremadura, Spain. It's a case that gripped the community and online forums for nearly a decade. Francisca Cadenas disappeared 9 years ago. She was simply walking back to her home from a friend's house on the street next to hers, less than 50 meters away, after saying goodbye. She was on her way to make dinner for her son.
And for 9 long years, she was just gone. The initial Reddit post about her disappearance, shared on our Unsolved Mysteries, described a well-lit street and a short walk, less than 100 feet, back to her house. It was one of those cases that seemed impossible for someone to just vanish into thin air.
Absolutely, Dan. The heartbreaking update, posted just recently on our Unsolved Mysteries, confirms that Francisca's skeletal remains were found yesterday, March 18, 2026. And the location? Buried just 20 meters from her own house, inside a neighbor's home.
20 meters. That's literally just 2 houses away from her family's home, where they'd lived for 9 years, hoping, searching, and wondering. It's almost unfathomable.
It is, and the Reddit comments reflect that shock. One user, who remembered the original discussion, wrote, "This was a strange disappearance. I was thinking about it the other day. The only thing that really made sense is that she would be in one of the houses, but it was said everything was searched, and no sign was found." Another added, "Her husband and family probably walked by that house multiple times a day, and had no clue. How sad."
That's the cruelest twist, isn't it? The solution was literally on their doorstep the entire time. The update states that 2 brothers have been arrested. The younger one is believed to be responsible for the murder, and the older one for covering it up.
Finally, some answers for Francisca's family. The Reddit user who posted the update expressed it beautifully. After all these years, her family and Francisca can finally rest in peace.
It's a profound relief for them, I'm sure, but it doesn't erase the 9 years of anguish. One comment from the original thread on our Unsolved Mysteries really captures the local sentiment. It seemed, when I first read the write-up that somebody did on here, that it would have to have been someone from the neighborhood. And now it's confirmed.
And there's a poignant comment about someone who came forward early on. The whole village owes a sincere apology to that poor guy who came forward and said that he saw her, even though he knew he would be suspected, with his history and immigration status. It highlights how easy it is to misdirect suspicion, even when someone is genuinely trying to help.
This case truly underscores the idea that sometimes the most unthinkable answers are the ones closest to home. While the motive isn't detailed in the Reddit post, the proximity of the crime to her home and the involvement of neighbors points to a deeply personal tragedy.
It does, Dan. And while we're always relieved when a case is solved, the circumstances of Francisca's discovery, so close yet so hidden for so long, add another layer of sorrow to an already tragic story. Her family can now begin the long process of grieving and healing.
That's UK True Crime Stories for today. These accounts were shared by members of the public on Reddit. If you have information about any unsolved case, please contact Crimestoppers on 0800 555 111.